society has always interested me. 1970, apart from gay clubs. Everybody looked great. It was still virtually a clandestine underground world, a community that really hadn't come out.
On January 8th, 2016, David Bowie celebrated his 69th birthday with a gift to the world, Blackstar, a strange, haunting album, dense with imagery of death, transcendence, and rebirth. Just 2 days later, he was gone. No prior announcement of illness, no farewell. Only a final work that left millions sitting in silence, realizing they had just witnessed an artist turn his own death into his ultimate performance. But Bowie had never been ordinary. For more than half a century, he changed his persona like a stage character. From the alien Ziggy Stardust to the cold, elegant, thin white Duke. From the blonde pop icon to a man who vanished into silence before returning with otherworldly sounds. He was the embodiment of constant reinvention, someone who never stood still, even at the very height of fame. Behind the stage lights and the transformations that astonish the world, Bowie was a man who kept his pain hidden, his shadows, his private battles, revealed only after he was gone. And perhaps that is what makes his life story not just music history, but an epic about creativity, freedom, and the courage to live authentically, right up to his very last breath. Early life. David Robert Jones was born on January 8, 1947, in Brixton, South London, at a time when Britain was still steeped in the lingering hardships of World War II. Brixton then was a crowded working-class neighborhood, its narrow streets packed with houses, filled with the sounds of street vendors' calls blending with the clanging of tram bells. His father, Haywood Stenton John Jones, a former soldier, worked for a charity organization. His mother, Margaret Peggy Burns, was a waitress at theaters and cafes. They met in their 20s, married in 1947, and soon had David, their only child, together. The family was not well off, but financial struggles were not their only challenge. The relationship between David's parents was often tense, partly due to clashing personalities and partly from the pressure of daily life. When David was 8, his parents separated. He spent most of his time with his mother, but theirs was not a warm relationship. Peggy was a reserved, strict woman, not given to outward displays of affection, leaving David feeling lonely even in his own home. The most influential figure in his childhood was not his father or mother, but his half-brother Terry Burns, 10 years his senior. Terry opened a door for David into the world of culture and art, taking him to galleries in central London, buying him jazz records, introducing him to beat poetry, and exposing him to avant-garde movements. But Terry also lived with schizophrenia, spending long periods in psychiatric hospitals. To David, Terry was both a figure of admiration and a source of a vague, unsettling fear that the same darkness might one day touch him too. In 1962, at the age of 15, a seemingly small incident left a permanent mark on David's appearance. During a schoolyard argument over a girl, his friend George Underwood punched him in the left eye. The injury caused a permanently dilated pupil, making his eyes appear to be two different colors. David would live with impaired vision in that eye for the rest of his life. Yet paradoxically, that distinctive gaze became part of the mysterious image that defined him. David's formative years coincided with London's vibrant cultural transformation of the 1950s and 1960s. Youth culture was exploding. Rock and roll was pouring in from America, blending with waves of jazz, blues, and the rebellious fashions of the mods and teddy boys. In that world, David, the slender boy with the unmatched eyes, found an escape from his loneliness in music, art, and fashion. No one in Brixton at the time could have imagined that he would turn all those fragments of his youth, the light and the darkness alike, into the raw material for one of the boldest artistic journeys of the 20th century. Early career. Stepping out of his teenage years with a guitar in hand and a mind full of borrowed images and sounds from every corner, David Jones entered the 1960s right in the middle of Britain's band explosion. But in London at that time, talent alone wasn't enough. Every street seemed to have its own group, and each believed they would be the next Beatles. David tried his hand with a string of school and amateur bands: the Conrads, the King Bees, the Manish Boys, and the Lower Third. These groups played in small clubs, pubs, and sometimes at weddings or local fairs. He wasn't just performing, he was also trying his hand at songwriting, though still struggling to find his own voice. His lyrics were heavily influenced by American blues and rock and roll, and his melodies were often criticized as more imitative than truly original. In 1964, David Jones released his first single with the King Bees, Liza Jane, which flopped. He quickly realized a bigger problem. His name was easily confused with Davy Jones, lead singer of the Monkees, a hugely popular band in the US at the time. Changing his stage name became a strategic move. He chose David Bowie, inspired by the Bowie knife, a symbol of the American West, which he saw as sharp and direct. With his new name, Bowie signed with the Deram label and in 1967 released his debut album, David Bowie. It was an odd mix of pop, cabaret, and musical theater, influenced by British singer-actor Anthony Newley. Though it showed curiosity and stylistic variety, the album was a complete commercial failure, and Bowie virtually disappeared from public view for a time. But he did not give up. Instead, Bowie immersed himself in studying drama, dance, and performance art, working with choreographer Lindsay Kemp, who taught him how to use body movement, facial expression, and costume to tell a story. This became the foundation for his later stage personas, like Ziggy Stardust. In 1969, as the world looked skyward, awaiting Apollo 11's moon landing, Bowie released Space Oddity. The tale of lonely astronaut Major Tom, drifting through space, cut off from Earth, became his first major hit, reaching number 5 on the UK charts. The song perfectly captured the historical moment while hinting at Bowie's ability to blend reality and imagination into an extraordinary musical experience. Yet success did not flow steadily after Space Oddity. In the early 1970s, Bowie continued experimenting with folk, rock, and even early electronic elements, still searching for an artistic identity that felt entirely his own. Those explorations were quietly setting the stage for a cultural explosion the world had yet to see coming. Career breakthrough. In the early 1970s, after years of experimentation and failure, David Bowie found his breakthrough through a daring move the music world had never seen before. He didn't just change his music, he created a fictional character to live alongside him on stage. Ziggy Stardust, the androgynous alien who came to Earth to save humanity with rock and roll, appeared with flaming red hair, sharp-edged makeup, and glittering skin-tight costumes, turning every concert into a full theatrical performance. The rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars was not only a resounding success, but also defined the glam rock movement. Yet, at Ziggy's peak, Bowie abruptly killed off the character right on stage in 1973, announcing it was the final show. It was a shock to fans and a statement. He would never let himself be trapped in any mold. Just a year later, he re-emerged in Diamond Dogs, a dystopian, grim vision inspired by George Orwell, blending rock, soul, and funk. By 1975, Bowie once again surprised audiences, leaving behind surrealism for the plastic soul of young Americans. The single Fame, co-written with John Lennon, took him to #1 in the US, opening a new market and confirming his limitless musical adaptability. But this dazzling era came hand in hand with personal darkness. Addicted to cocaine and plagued by chronic insomnia, Bowie embodied the Thin White Duke, a cold, distant, and enigmatic aristocrat on Station to Station, 1976. Determined not to sink into self-destruction, he left America for Berlin, seeking renewal and collaborating with Brian Eno to create the experimental trilogy Low, Heroes, and Lodger. This fusion of electronic, ambient, and rock shaped the direction of alternative, post-punk, and electronic music for an entire generation. As the 1980s began, Bowie unexpectedly shifted toward commercial pop and exploded in popularity with Let's Dance, 1983. Tracks like Let's Dance, China Girl, and Modern Love became global phenomena, and his tour sold out on every continent. Yet the massive success drew criticism that he had traded boldness for accessibility. Refusing to stand still, Bowie experimented throughout the 1990s with industrial rock, Outside, 1995, drum and bass, Earthling, 1997, and became one of the first major artists to release music online. He even formed the band Tin Machine to escape the weight of his own name, though the project fell short commercially. After nearly a decade of silence, Bowie made a surprise comeback with The Next Day, 2013, proving his creative edge remained intact. 3 years later came Blackstar, dark, haunting jazz rock steeped in metaphors of death. Its release coincided with his 69th birthday, and just 2 days later, David Bowie passed away. Blackstar thus became more than an album. It was the final curtain on a career like no other, a lifelong journey of reinvention, where every appearance was a rebirth. Turmoil and shadows. As dazzling as David Bowie's career was, his private life and hidden struggles were just as complex. In the early 1970s, Bowie shocked the public when he declared himself gay in an interview with Melody Maker, only to say a year later that he was bisexual. Toward the end of his life, he admitted that this might have been the biggest mistake he ever made, or perhaps simply part of a calculated bid for attention. The constant shifts left some questioning his sincerity, while the LGBTQ+ community saw him as both a symbol of liberation and, at times, a figure who had exploited their image for personal branding. Adding fuel to the fire were persistent rumors of a same-sex relationship with Mick Jagger, stoked when his ex-wife Angie Bowie hinted she had caught the two in an intimate situation. The glamorous years in Los Angeles also left deep stains. Bowie fell into such heavy cocaine use that he became skeletal, living in hallucinations and prolonged insomnia. He later recounted believing in occult rituals, even keeping a jar of urine in the fridge to prevent witches from stealing his soul. It was during this period that he inhabited the Thin White Duke, a cold, aristocratic figure dressed in elegance, yet espousing extreme views. In one infamous interview, Bowie praised Hitler as the first rock star and was even photographed giving a Nazi-style salute at London's Victoria Station. He would later blame these moments on addiction and unstable mental health, but the images haunted him for years. Controversy didn't stop at words. He was accused of having sexual relations with underage fans, most notably by Lori Maddox, a well-known Los Angeles baby groupie who claimed she had slept with Bowie when she was just 15. While laws and social norms were more permissive at the time, such accounts, viewed through today's lens, have fueled intense debates about morality and power dynamics in the entertainment industry. Deeper wounds came from within his own family. His relationship with half-brother Terry Burns, the man who had ignited Bowie's artistic fire, was a constant interplay of light and darkness. Terry suffered from schizophrenia, and in 1985, after years of moving in and out of psychiatric hospitals, he took his own life. Bowie was devastated, calling it one of his greatest losses. That death cast a shadow over many of his songs, from Jump They Say to The Next Day, as if they were quiet, ongoing conversations with the past. Even after regaining stability in the post-1980s years, Bowie was never free from controversy. His decision in 1997 to sell his entire music catalog as Bowie Bonds brought him an immediate $55 million windfall, but also drew criticism for commercializing his legacy. Bowie saw it instead as a savvy move to gain full financial and creative control. Beneath the bright lights and the applause, Bowie carried invisible scars, from scandal, addiction, family loss, and mistakes that could never be undone. Yet it was precisely from these shadows that he was able to reinvent himself time and again, turning each chapter, no matter how dark, into the material for a new persona, a song, or a transformation. Personal life. Emerging from years of addiction and controversy, David Bowie maintained a personal life that was still complex, yet filled with rare moments of peace. In 1970, he married Angie Barnett, later known as Angie Bowie, in a relationship that was both an artistic partnership and a constant clash of wills. They lived in what they openly described as an open marriage, sharing not only a home but also relationships with other people. Angie played a key role in shaping Bowie's rebellious, androgynous image during the Ziggy Stardust era, but cracks in their bond were always present. In 1971, their son Duncan Zoe Haywood Jones was born, though his childhood was marked by instability, as his parents were often away on tour or immersed in separate projects. After a decade of passion and turmoil, Bowie and Angie's marriage ended in 1980 with a highly publicized divorce. Angie was granted custody of Duncan, though father and son maintained a close relationship. In the years that followed, Bowie was romantically linked, both publicly and through rumors, to famous women such as Susan Sarandon, Elizabeth Taylor, and Melissa Hurley, but none stayed long enough to lead him back to marriage. Everything changed in 1990 when he met Somali-American supermodel Iman Abdul-Majid at a party in Los Angeles. Bowie later said that he knew from the first moment she was the woman of his life. 2 years later, they married in a private ceremony in Switzerland, followed by a larger celebration in Florence, Italy. Life with Iman marked a period of stability and discretion for Bowie. No more headline-grabbing scandals, no fleeting affairs, and far more time devoted to family. In 2000, their daughter Alexandria Zara Jones, affectionately called Lexi, was born, becoming the center of their world. Bowie often said that becoming a father to a little girl at 53 changed the way he saw life, and that Iman was the only person I want to grow old with. The couple split their time between New York and London, staying out of the spotlight whenever possible to give Lexi the most normal childhood they could. In his final years, as illness took hold, Bowie upheld his tradition of privacy, never letting the public know he was battling liver cancer. Only Iman and a few close confidants understood the true weight of that struggle. For Bowie, his private life was the last safe haven, the place where he could shed the stage personas, the scandals, and the spotlight, and simply be David, a husband, a father, and a man who had come to treasure the quiet after a lifetime of noise. Death and the rumors. In March 2014, while living quietly in New York and continuing to work in secrecy, David Bowie was diagnosed with terminal liver cancer. The news struck suddenly, but he refused to let it define his remaining days. Instead of sharing it with the public, he chose to keep it absolutely private, telling only Iman, his 2 children, and a handful of trusted collaborators. On the rare occasions he appeared in public, Bowie maintained his calm composure, even as his health began to decline. Close friends later recalled that he did not want pity in anyone's eyes, nor did he want his musical projects overshadowed by illness. For the next 18 months, he worked almost without pause. Alongside his quiet battle with the disease, Bowie co-wrote and staged Lazarus, a musical that continued the story of his Major Tom character, rich with metaphors about death and transcendence. At the same time, he began Blackstar, the 25th studio album of his career, collaborating with the jazz group the Donny McCaslin Group to create a dark, mysterious sound, experimental in spirit, yet laced with hidden farewells in its lyrics. On January 8th, 2016, Blackstar was released on his 69th birthday. From the first listen, many felt its mournful atmosphere. Lines like, "Look up here, I'm in heaven and I've got nothing left to lose," rang out like final messages. In the Lazarus music video, Bowie lay in a hospital bed, eyes bandaged, at once a real patient and a character slowly leaving the stage. Just 2 days later, on the morning of January 10th, 2016, David Bowie died at his apartment in Manhattan, New York. The official cause, confirmed by his family, was liver cancer after an 18-month battle. The world was stunned. Only 2 days earlier, they had been celebrating his birthday and discussing his new album, and now, all that remained was silence. According to his wishes, there was no public funeral, no grand farewell. He was cremated immediately, his ashes scattered in Bali in a Buddhist ceremony. No headstone, no monument, only the music and the images left behind. This departure fueled numerous rumors that Bowie had deliberately vanished to make his death part of his final work. That Blackstar was a prophecy he created knowing the end was near. Even conspiracy theories claiming he was still alive, living incognito somewhere. The kind of Elvis Presley-style legend that clings to many musical icons. Some went further, linking the symbols in Blackstar to Bowie's fascination with the occult in the 1970s, suggesting it was a meticulously staged ritual exit from the world. While there is no concrete evidence for such theories, they only reinforce the image of an artist in control of his life's narrative until the very last moment. For fans, Bowie's death did not close the legend. It simply opened a new chapter, where he exists forever as an icon, somewhere between reality and imagination. Legacy and influence. David Bowie left behind more than half a century of uninterrupted creativity, with a vast musical catalog that sold over 140 million records worldwide and garnered dozens of major awards, including multiple Grammys, Brit Awards, and countless Lifetime Achievement honors. But the numbers are only the surface. His true legacy lies in how he redefined what it meant to be an artist, not as someone who serves popular taste, but as a constantly evolving force, breaking boundaries and daring to turn himself into a living work of art. He was a direct inspiration to generations of alternative punk, new wave, and electronic musicians, from Madonna and Lady Gaga to Nirvana, Radiohead, and Arctic Monkeys. Bowie paved the way for merging music with performance art, fashion, film, and for making personal image inseparable from the artistic experience. Characters like Ziggy Stardust and the Thin White Duke were more than personas. They were cultural narratives that influenced how society perceived gender, identity, and creative freedom. Beyond music, Bowie left a mark on cinema with haunting performances in The Man Who Fell to Earth, Labyrinth, and The Prestige. He was one of the rare artists who could succeed in both music and film while preserving his creative identity. His forward-thinking spirit also shone through in his early embrace of the internet for music releases and in his bold decision to monetize his catalog through Bowie Bonds, setting a precedent for new approaches to copyright and music rights management. His influence extended far beyond the arts. For the LGBTQ+ community, despite controversies over his statements, Bowie remained a pioneering symbol of daring to be openly different at a time when doing so risked one's career. In fashion, his androgynous, fearless, and ever-changing image became a touchstone for designers from Alexander McQueen to Gucci. After his death, a wave of tribute concerts, exhibitions, and scholarly works appeared around the world. Blackstar quickly rose to #1 on multiple charts, becoming the highest-selling album of his career in the US. Proof that audiences were not only mourning the man, but also cherishing that final work as an artistic will. David Bowie's legacy is not just in his music or his image, but in his spirit, an artist who lived and died on his own terms, unafraid to experiment, unafraid to change, and always in control of his own story. He left the world with a simple but powerful message. Creativity has no finish line, and personal identity is the most precious thing worth defending to the end. From a boy growing up under the shadow of family troubles in Brixton to one of the most mercurial artists of the 20th century, Bowie lived a life of constant reinvention. He conquered music, fashion, and film, only to dismantle the very molds he had just created. He shocked, he stumbled, he descended into darkness, yet each time he returned, it was in a new form, sharper, more haunting, and freer. Even death, he turned into a work of art, closing his journey with Blackstar, the most beautiful and heartbreaking farewell an artist could give to the world. David Bowie didn't just leave behind music. He left behind a way of life, to dare, to change, to make your entire existence a performance that never repeats. And perhaps the question for all of us after reflecting on his journey is this: if you knew your time was short, would you choose to quietly disappear or turn your final days into a masterpiece? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe so we can continue exploring the extraordinary, surprising life stories of the people who changed the world.